Hey there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Crit Hit Interviews. I'm Arlyeon, and we're here today with Dave Mervik. That's about right?
Yep.
Okay, there's no pronunciation thing that I'm actually going to fuck up on for once.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna pronounce it really weirdly next time I mention my surname, just so you feel bad.
Damn it. Of Tarsier Studios.
Yeah.
Just a hanging studio name there. But yeah, well, some of you folks may no doubt recognize them as the developers of Little Nightmares 1 and 2. Others may recall their VR puzzle game Static, or know them due to the fabled City of Metronome. I did my research. So yeah, that's our intro side, Dave. So Icebreakers are always a good way to sort of kick things off with a bit more of an informal introduction, and this also means that for the people who are looking for the scoop on game-related stuff, well, the list of game-related questions is on the screen for you. That said, well, first off, it's been a while, Dave. Been a long while, actually, since you were last here. First off, yeah, just tell us a bit about yourself and what you do at Tarsier.
Yeah, I'm Dave Mervik. I'm narrative director now, don't you know? So I've been given a push up. Now we started working on our own new stuff. And I've been working at Tarsier since 2010. Been in the industry since 2001. But since I've been at Tarsier, I've worked on a story for Little Big Planet, and as just mentioned before, Static, and then these Little Nightmares games. So yeah, here I am, all this time later, still at the same place.
It sounds like you've been super diligent and productive.
Yeah, sounds that way, doesn't it? When you just state it simply.
But, well, here's a big question. So, has the popularity of the Little Nightmares series changed the work environment at Tarsier, given it sort of blew up?
No, not really, because I mean we've not really been kind of chasing like fame or popularity or success or whatever with what we've been doing. So it's not been a case of when something we do has been successful that we suddenly just start smelling our own farts and all this and saying how great we are. It's still just kind of we're looking for the next thing to do really well, and so it yeah, I mean, when we started working on the second game, of course you know that you're known there, so there's a little bit of extra pressure, I would say. You can't ignore that, but also we haven't tried to we're not trying to please anybody in that way. We have tried to keep focus on the stuff that drove us in the first place, and just because we knew that worked, that got us to a good place. So we just tried to keep going that way, and obviously address some stuff that everyone agreed could be better. But yeah, it's not really changed. Corona changed it a lot more, but yeah, Little Nightmares didn't.
We're gonna get back to that point, but
no, don't. I'm sick of it.
Absolutely sick of it. But so just how much fan mail do you folks get? And also, what's the most interesting package your office has received?
I was actually went to the physical office the other day, and I saw we'd got some fan mail in just I think that day. One of them had sealing wax on it, so I don't know how long that took to get it. But so that was cool. I don't know, the most interesting recently we had was someone had crocheted some of the characters from Little Nightmares 2, which was I think Megan, our brand communications manager, really gave them the props on the Twitter. So you may have seen pictures already, but that was amazing. It was really well done. So
I think I actually did see some of those. I also saw the cooking competition thing.
Oh yeah, that wasn't our thing. That was Bandai.
I
Or
was
the
just
official
like,
Little Nightmares, the official Little Nightmares channel at least.
I am not sure if I would eat some of these. Some of these maybe. But yeah, other than that, I suppose, what have you been diving into just as of late, gaming wise?
A bit of everything actually. I only recently got a Switch, so I've been kind of finding what all that's all about. You know what I've been missing. I've been playing nothing to do with the kind of work we do, but I've been really enjoying Golf Story, which is just a super lovely game. You know, even if you don't love golf, but there's kind of some nice humor in that one. What else have I been playing? Yeah, I played a bit of Oddworld Soulstorm. I don't know what I feel about that one at the moment. I don't know if I like it or not.
I can't recall. Is that the remake or?
No, it's like the latest Oddworld.
Okay, I've played like the first two and then the remakes of the first two.
I lost track of it, so maybe it's a remake of the second one. I don't know, but it's free on PlayStation Plus, so that's what I'm playing at the minute. I tried to get back into Rocket League, and I'd lost all of the minor skills that I'd acquired way back when. So that's the start of a long journey again. So I'm playing a bit of everything, but like I say, I don't have much time with my kid around. Like, so the time I do get is just kind of quick blasts of different stuff, and that's what's great with the Switch particularly. But I read loads more than I play games, which is a bit more nice to relax.
That's a good practice though. Like, 1 second. My cat is being a gremlin and requires placating with food. All I heard was like this background ruffling noise, and then I turned around and she's just swatting away at one of my housemate's posters, and I'm like, I'm going to get chewed out for that. Could you not? But yeah, okay. Yeah, no. Altogether, that sounds super wholesome. Golfing. Man, I never actually
Have you played Golf Story?
I have not.
It's really nice, man. It's I would say it's laugh out loud funny, you know, but it's kind of takes you by surprise because I'm really I can't help paying attention to dialogue in games. And I'm so used to it being terrible or at least mundane, and then like a game like Golf Story comes along and it doesn't do that. It's got a personality, and it's been really kind of refreshing. So like it's really nice gameplay, but also kind of I don't just try and skip through all of the speech bubbles. You know, I kind of enjoy them, which is nice.
It doesn't require the mashing X to get on to the next scene.
Oh my god! I mean, however good Zelda is, I can't stand it. It's just you lose hours of your life. And accidentally pressing the wrong button when you're near a character, like, oh, I don't want to go through this conversation again.
I think, or the worst thing of when you're invested, but they have a finicky thing where it's like, oh yeah, no, to like advance through dialogue, you're gonna be like clicking along, but some dialogue things just quickly pop up, and you flick through the actually interesting parts, and you're just trying to like stop it from auto-scrolling slowly.
Yeah.
God, I hate slow auto-scroll. I hate it so much.
Oh.
Which, I mean, I don't really have to worry about all that much because, do us folks and the audience a little bit of favor and describe Little Nightmares 2.
Like a little synopsis?
A tiny little synopsis.
Tiny look. All right. It's a game about a kid called Mono and his attempts alongside Six, who, if you played the first game, you'll recognize. And together, those two make their way through a whole bunch of new awful places, such as the Pale City, to get to this place called the Signal Tower, because there's a beaming out this transmission that's just doing awful things to awful people, and it's that story of that journey.
Yeah, that's I think a pretty good summary of it all.
Without saying anything else to ruin
I was just
it.
like, awful things to awful people, and my brain was just like, so wait, they were terrible before it existed then?
Yeah, that's pretty much Little Nightmares, isn't it? Doing awful things to awful people.
There is a lot of questions this series arises, but before we get to sort of like narrative points, I guess, first off, just how did Little Nightmares 2 come to be?
Well, it was always there in some form, because I worked on the lore from relatively early on in the first game, just like world building. Mainly because the stuff that we're doing needs to exist in a place that makes sense. It can't just be, oh, this is all cool. Don't worry about why we've done it this way. We want it to feel kind of coherent. So I just kind of worked on that, and so I think obviously when the first game was successful, Bandai, who own the IP, they started talking about doing more with it. So then we start looking into what's already existing in the lore, and what's kind of got the concept team frothing, and what kind of themes are we getting excited about, what's in the water at the moment, all that sort of stuff. And then it just becomes about like, well, how does all this fit together? So we kind of, a handful of us got together and started talking about these different things that were out there, and all that, and kind of just started whittling it down, really. And I think once we had something that started to feel like, right, this is a world, and these are places, and these are characters, and this kind of story we're going to tell. Again, I kind of stepped back from that, and the creative director and the cinematic artist took it forward and actually telling the game story, a very specific game story, and how to visualize that. And I get back to world building, and because whenever we start getting concept work through, I need to kind of, that's what I work with then. Like, okay, so this is something that feels really kind of like it belongs in this story, in this game. So how does it fit together? And it could be that it already exists in my stuff, or it could be that it comes from them. So we kind of have this, two-way street in that respect. So that's the fairly rambling story of how it came to be. I don't know if we talked about that last time, but with both games, it always comes from a core theme. What is it that's exciting us about this, and why? And like in the first game, it was originally called Hunger, but it was about that. It was about consumption and greed and all those wonderful things. And here was escapism, and again, all those wonderful things. And like, why? How do people distract themselves, and why? That kind of stuff.
So I think we did touch on hunger and greed. The escapism thing, though, that's definitely interesting thematically, and like when I think about it, I can definitely sort of see it both in the role of like the antagonists that you come across, and like the locales and everything you venture through. And that is actually one of the things I wanted to ask about, was just like, there is a lot of different environments you travel across. Was there any other specific regions that you folks had wanted to include in the game, and what was your favorite amongst them?
Do you mean stuff that didn't make it into the game?
So for locales that you want to include,
yes.
Yeah, but I mean, your favorite could be amongst any of them, whether it was included or not. If you had a favorite,
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know how much I can talk about that, because, as I say, this is Bandai's IP now, and I don't know what their plans are. We're not part of them. So what I don't want to do is kind of spoil anything that they might be gonna maybe use in the future. So I'm gonna be careful there. I much as I'd love to to spill the beans, I'll probably get in trouble.
So there is different environment things that were possibly thought of or sketched out. It's nothing you can touch on.
Man, there's tons of stuff. They are now owners of my lore Bible. It's probably like in a big warehouse, like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. but yeah, that's what I mean. Like once they stop working on the game story, I just go to town, and so I don't just create stuff for the first game and the DLC in the second game. I do that when we start getting stuff through, like areas they want to work with, but I'm also spending my time creating my own places and my own characters. Stuff that kind of you just stumble across when you kind of following the natural route of the story and the story of the world as well. So there's loads of kids, there's loads of residents, there's loads of locations. And
so
it's
sort of like those really grim sites for all the glitched children and everything.
There's all sorts of stuff. Like that's what I mean. That this world has to make sense outside of the games. When we came to do the second game, it is about like all right, what do we have in the art team? All right, but what do you have? What do you find interesting? And so you're plucking it out maybe, but it's already there. These things that. These characters and why they're here, and all sorts of stuff. So there's a wealth of world out there, some of which has been used in our games and some of which hasn't.
So things like Littlest Nightmare and everything, I take it you've worked with Bandai to go and make sure that it sort of adheres to the sort of overall canon of the world, or is it more that they just have this book of all of the stuff you've worked on? And
you mean the mobile game, Very Little Nightmares?
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. Yeah. I had a bit of involvement there. I mean, but it came from them, like what they wanted to do. And then I think I wrote lore a little bit, but I think they even did that. I think I helped with some of the names for the characters, but I had very little involvement there. I think that was them, and they were probably just working more close with Bandai, who obviously know the IP as well. But I think it was just maybe I consulted here and there, if they just wanted a bit of feedback or bounce some ideas off or whatever. But it was minimal my involvement there. And the studio itself, that was their baby.
I'm just more or less curious because there's a very interesting sort of a timeline that forms between Very Little Nightmares and then I suppose it would be Little Nightmares 2 and then Little Nightmares. Which, yeah, I mean, while I don't generally like to dive hugely into spoiler territory, I guess this sort of thing happens in an interview. So was Little Nightmares 2 always meant to be a prequel?
I mean, yeah. I mean, we talked about all sorts. We talked about where we wanted this to take place and how, whether it should be a two-player game or, all that sort of stuff. It was mainly like, where's the interest in setting the story? And I think it was kind of fun to like it. I don't think didn't feel like a massive twist that this was a prequel, because people were talking about it. They were kind of justifying their own belief in the beginning, weren't they? Like, I think it's a sequel because, I think it's a prequel because. So hopefully it feels like we succeeded in it, kind of almost hiding in plain sight that. But there was lots of, what do you do if it takes place after the first game? How do you deal with Six's, like where Six, where she ends up there? It's like it's a complete shift then, isn't it? Or at least you have to spend a lot of time like explaining, like, all right, so if this just makes someone a a monster with lightning in a thing, whatever. I mean, what people would have expected there. Like, how do you wheel back from that? There's too much time there, and it just felt more interesting to leave her there for a while, and kind of check. Because the other thing is like we weren't prepared. We knew we had a cool character in 6. But we weren't prepared for how iconic she would become for people who like the game. Because this Little Nightmares was all about the world and the kids that go there, not one kid. It's about all of these kids that have to live through that place. So, we wanted to still do that. And again, it just felt very natural that this then took place before the first game. Like, well, where's 6 been before, and how was it for her? Is there anyone she met along this journey to the more? So yeah, I think obviously everything is everything when you're developing a concept, but then once we got going, we knew what we were doing and where it was taking place for sure.
Okay, so this question has been bothering the heck out of me, but without saying exactly what it is, do you have a specific insight you would like to share on what it was that drove 6 to do what the hell she did at the end? Because that hurt.
Yeah. I mean, all I'll say is perspectives will vary, won't they? I think I've said this before. It's the best I can do without kind of just spilling everything, ruining everything for people. But like, Mono's take on why it was dropped will be different to 6's, and it will be different to yours as a player, and everyone will have a different take on why that happened at that point. And that's as much as I'm prepared to say on that, because it's all there. It's all there. It's,
I was gathering that 6 recognized the, we'll say the relationship that the Pale Man and Mono have, and she just sort of weighed that and was like, nah. But I wasn't sure if that was like sort of where it boiled down to, because there's definitely like disquieting behavior all throughout the game, but there was plenty of other opportunities to do what she did.
Yeah. So So yeah, sorry, I'm not gonna say any more about that.
No, that's fair.
Because if I told you, you'd be like that. Why did you tell me?
But yeah, I had to try.
I know. I understand.
But yeah, is there actually any story aspects that you folks still want to tell? I actually went through the Little Nightmare comics and
the digital comics.
Yep, the digital comics. I went through the first 3 and then the second batch, and there's a lot of mysterious aspects which were introduced there, and I was sort of curious as to like how much of those, like, their presence can be seen, felt, or hinted at in the main game. Like, there's a very odd otherworldliness for things like the North Wind, or the character that is grown up and monstrous, but still comparatively to the other things less monstrous than the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the digital comics are more of a reflection of what we would want to do, what we wanted to do outside of the games. I would say the print comics less so. the digital comics I was involved with. I'm very proudly involved with that. I kind of basically wrote a premise for each of the digital comics, for each of the characters that you play through. And then they were sent to Plastique, who did just a phenomenal job of translating that to the silent animated digital comics that you've seen for this game. I was thrilled with them. I'd forgotten because, obviously there's a lot of hard work goes into that stuff. And so I'd forgotten actually that I had written those synopses for was it 6, I think, for the digital comics. And then it just showed up one day on Twitter, I think it was. Check out the first 2. I was like that. Oh, whoa! So I was like genuinely excited. And when I saw what they'd done with them, I was really happy and very proud for them to be part of the world that we've created. It's just exactly as it should have been.
Yeah, I actually found it really interesting at least for the digital ones. Like, I think I also found the print ones, if that's the Northwind. I don't recall if that's the Northwind one or not.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I was curious as to the relative canonicity of that, because it also begged a whole lot of questions.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things which would sort of parse, because like in the second game, you do technically encounter like an adult that's not immediately murderous. You deliver a parcel. You deliver a parcel to him.
Yeah.
And he doesn't reach the door and strangle the life out of you.
It's the little things that make your day better, isn't it?
A little bit. And I was just like, I found that interesting though, because at the very least, while it showcased that like these antagonistic interactions that the children have with the older ones, it's not entirely uniform that it needs to go down in the way it does. And I was curious as to the relevance of that, or if there's any more hints of things like that in it. I mean, God knows there was some really screwed up stuff that happens in the middle of Little Nightmares too, and so like that like singularly wholesome moment versus like the rooftop thing that happens right before with just all the kids on the ledges is...
I love that. You mean the TV watching people?
Where there's the TV watching people, but then you come across the rooftop and it's all like the people on the ledges. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great scene, isn't it?
That hit like a train the first time I got there.
Yeah. Really powerful. I hadn't seen that before either, because I've been buried in lore at that point. When that was... So I played that as a player, and I was like that. Oh, that hit me right in the gut, that one. Really good. Really, really good.
Yeah. And like, it was interesting because there's like a lot of symbolism in that sense, like throughout the game. Especially, there's a lot of like weird suicide symbolism that shows up, especially as you're running through the Pale City.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing, though. I mean, because we've chosen to not tell these stories with words, then you're left with something like more powerful, which is just like a scene. You just see something happening, and I find it way more disturbing when you don't know why. Like the scene on the ledge, for example.
Yeah, no.
If someone was talking you through that, or if your main character was narrating it. Imagine if Nathan Drake was seeing that and be like, oh man, that did some fucked up shit. It's like, it totally destroys it. Or even if he wasn't being super heroic or wisecracky, still anyone punctures that moment by defiling it with talking, it's dead, isn't it? You know, the suicide is dead. So I think it's so much more powerful there, and I think that's what you get then.
Because of that mystery and the way the narrative is handled, where there's a lot of like the bits in between is left to inference.
Yeah, I mean, because like we talk a lot about like how hard it is to tell a story when you don't have dialogue, and it is true because a lot of the heavy lifting then is on art and on audio, but we don't talk half as much on what you get for that as well. You know, like how powerful a photograph or a painting can be when you put it next to a book, for example. It's not like lower class media, is it? That you can just get so much out of a single painting. Your entire life, you can look at that and get and feel something from it. So it doesn't have to be that games always talk when they're telling a story, when you just get something so arresting and you have to cope with it and wonder about that yourself, because then you don't get it narrated for you. You have to engage with it, and I just think it's so that's the upside of art and audio, having to do all of that hard work.
No, that's fair. But I also, just to sort of, I guess, tie this narrative bit together, there is a whole lot that is left unsaid and untold, but you can't really say or tell it currently, and this is Tarsier's last stab at the franchise, if I'm not incorrect.
Yeah.
So, and there's possibilities we might see more of what you folks have worked on, but actually, there is a relative question here. So, at this juncture, is there anything left to add to Little Nightmares 2? I remember looking on some of the Reddits and stuff that people had theorized that there was DLC incoming because of some space or something they found in the game.
Yeah, I saw about that as well. I mean, that's a question for Bandai. I mean, I think this data mining, the depths people are going to in this game, that was something else that they find out that way, or they think they found out that way. I think it's just fantastic, really. But yeah, that's all I can say. Is if anything else people want to know, Little Nightmares-ish isn't for us to say.
But more or less, it's up to Bandai whether or not Little Nightmares 2 gets DLC. But if it did get DLC, would that be a thing you'd be working on more directly, or is that specifically in Bandai's court at that point?
Everything Little Nightmares is for Bandai to talk about now. So I honestly, I can't even confirm or deny it. It's just not something that
fair.
We can even talk about. I'm sorry, but
yeah, no.
I hate being this cagey. It's no fun.
And in that case, let's get to something a little bit more simple, which is, and I think you briefly touched on it, but like, what was the hardest challenge when making the game?
I mean, since I wasn't like in the dev team, I would probably have to go with Corona. I think that's like because that was like a massive. It didn't kind of. It wasn't like, you know, a big, the project's, you know, blowing up because of Corona. It wasn't that. It was like, because the actual transition from physical working space to home working space was as fluid as you could hope for. I mean, RIT were like absolute crazies. They just nailed it. One weekend, it was like, right, you'll all be working from home from Monday. This has accelerated beyond, you know, what we expected. And we were, you know, we were all at home and we were all connected and everything. But with that, there was so much to get used to, you know, because we're a very kind of integrated studio. We bullshit with each other and just have, you know, ad hoc meetings, or even just being together and getting energy from each other, you know, in the morning or all that sort of stuff was gone, and so that was a real challenge, that you don't get to just, you hear something cool someone's done and go and sit with them and give them like very, very casual, unawkward feedback. Instead, you're all in your little celebrity squares boxes, trying not to interrupt each other, and just everything. You suddenly have to deal with awkwardness with people who you've never been awkward with before. All that stuff like took place during that project, so it was just that was like the challenge, really, as it has been for everyone. And again, I don't want the violins out, because people have put up with so much worse. My sisters are nurses, you know what I mean? They are like out there. And all around the world there's people really struggling with it, so I'm certainly not saying we've had it terrible, but that was at least a challenge, I would say, in terms of how we've worked in the past.
That's fair. Yeah, I suppose other than that, did this lead to any changes in Little Nightmares 2, cause anything maybe not to show up in the game that you guys originally had wanted to show up in the game, or?
No, I mean what we wanted in the game. Again, from conception to final product, it's always like a refining process, and very early on, there's more of that, because there's a big idea you have, and then you start working with it, and you're like, do you know what? This was good in my head, but it's going to be to the detriment of the game. So it's not like we wanted it in there right at the end. We knew when these things had to go. We knew why they had to go. Do you know what I mean? So it's like that. It's
just the fact getting
the game we put out is the game we wanted to put out, because it needed to have a certain effect. It needed to tell a certain story in a certain way. And it can be about balance. It can be about pacing. It can just be about efficiency of telling that story. Anything that kind of is to the detriment of that has to go, and you have to. And again, that's in any media. If you're writing a book or whatever, it can be really hard. But I love this piece of text as it is, but it's killing the book. So it's one of them. Yeah, you just got to have your focus on the right places, and not on your own little darling. That's one thing that we always have to come to terms with, the killing of your darlings.
Though I guess speaking of darlings, since you guys are now like moving on, I'm legitimately curious to know what it is that you are moving on to. So like, what are the current projects or projects that you're cracking open, if you'd be willing to talk about it?
I would be. I can't talk about it now, though, I'm afraid. It's that simple. We're working on 2 right now.
Ooh.
That's out there, so I don't need to fear being fired for that. But if I said any more, then I would be. or really, really, really told off. But yeah, I can't wait for the day when we can talk about it, because it's going to be good times. But at the moment, no, it's absolutely a no-go, I'm afraid.
Don't even get a hint on genre or like game style, if it's going to be something familiar with something you folks have already done, or if it's going to be you guys innovating.
It's going to be a Tarsier game. Tarsier genre.
Damn it.
We're working on our new genre. Yeah, no, that's the best I can tell you, I'm afraid. It's gonna be great. So it just means we'll have to have a third interview, doesn't it? That's all.
I mean, I'm down with that. It's always fun to faff about in chat. I did actually legitimately have a bit of a curious thought as to whether or not Static had any chance of possibly being revisited. I remember checking around in 1 second. I was looking to go and see if that was a thing that I could like play, because I don't have VR, and like I primarily play on PC, and I was just like, is there a chance ever for it to like get a PCE non VR-ish release thing?
There is a chance, because we still own that IP. I mean, that was that was a Tarsier published. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's true actually. Sony Strategic funded it. I think we published it ourselves actually. Yeah. So that's ours. And when we were bought by Embracer Group, they obviously acquired the Static IP as well. Theoretically, yes, you could see that sometime. Selfishly, I would love you to see that as well, because Static, I've said time and time again, is like probably the best experience I've ever had making a game in my entire career. I think it was just.
I mean, that's part of why I brought it up. Is I'm like, I do enjoy your writing and world building, so I'm like, yeah, any chance this being on a thing I can actually play it on?
Oh, I'd love to. I also, every so often with Tarsier, I do a bit of voice acting, and I was Dr. Ringen in Static, so that's also another selfish reason.
I mean, fair enough. I don't know. Get to go and like potentially just listen to your hard work one day. But what would you say would probably be the likelihood of that? Because you guys have your two current projects. I'm going to take a wild guess that Static being ported to Steam or remade is not one of those two projects.
Well, that can be your wild guess then. I know you're trying to sneak me into saying something.
I just want to know if Static or Metronome is in the cards, because I know Metronome was like, you guys is like a lot of people were following Metronome for a while.
Yeah, do you know, even now, which is amazing. That's the power of that, of the unmade game. I don't know. Again, I mean, with Metronome, it's the reason I came to studio, and I think it's probably the case for more people than me. And again, it's possible because it's our IP still. But whether it's likely, I couldn't tell you. But you know, it's one of those. I'm in two minds, because it's such a great world. It gave me so many ideas, and again, it's why I wrote to Tarsier in the beginning saying that I need to work with you, because this stuff is inspiring, what you're trying to do. But I think I described it in the past. It's like a poison chalice. It's one of those things that, you know, people are still so interested in seeing that game. What if we actually made it? Will it be the same as me demanding Star Wars prequels and then getting them? I mean, honestly, because I don't feel like we would make a terrible game, but when people kind of obviously have their own idea of what that game would be, if we actually made it, maybe it would be a shame almost. You know what I mean? That was of its time.
I'm sure
Little
the fans
Nightmares is of its time too, and what we do next will be us where we are now. So if we ever did do Metronome, it would be where we are now rather than where we were then, because we mustn't just make that game from back then. That was these super talented people as youngsters, and they were probably still quite optimistic. More optimistic than they are. So wow. Like I say, again, selfishly, I'd love us to make Metronome. I'd love us to do more with Static. But should we? I don't know, because I think the thing that drives a studio is creation, you know, making something new, seeing where are our minds now, instead of looking back. But that's not a no at all. It's just I don't know, I guess.
And there's the whole wariness of not wanting to make the newest equivalent of Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know, and again, I don't fear that with us really, because we just refuse to make anything terrible, you know, because I guess everyone does, you know, in their own mind, but like we're so critical of it, like, is this actually good? You know, constantly asking ourselves that. So I don't worry in that way, but still, when there's so many people still to this day asking us about Metronome, we'll have an idea about what that game should have been, or should be, or whatever. And if you then come out and you've done it and they're like, that's not what I wanted, and then you you're in trouble. And you don't want to get in trouble with the internet. I think that's the rule.
Just as a brief aside, so you do like a lot of sort of the world building, the synopsises, and that. Is there any just writing projects that you're working on, either just for your own just self-satisfaction, or that is like a companion to any of the works you've worked on?
Yeah, I mean, I write my own stuff at home. I never send anything off to get published, but it all feeds what I do, or some of it feeds what I do at work, you know. Like, I just write because I need to have done it, and I need to keep getting better, you know. And sometimes some stuff that I've done kind of feels good, and I can lift it for something that we're doing at work. But yeah, I don't write fan fiction for my own stuff, if you know what I mean. It's not like I do like static fan fiction at home, but I know when I was trying to come up with the voice for Dr. Ingen, that came from outside work pursuits, because we've been playing music in the cellar at the old office, me and Andreas, and I've been screaming my head off singing, and went home with a booze-fueled screaming crackly voice, and my wife's like, that man, you sound really old, you should record some dialogue for Dr. Ingen now. And I did, and that was basically the voice for Dr. Ingen in the end. And I had to keep then trying to recreate that very, you know, down here. And when I'm like, I can't be getting drunk and screaming every day when I'm going to do recordings. So I had to maybe like tweak it a little bit just to be able to keep doing that voice. But yeah, so I mean, it wasn't like kind of a writing project, but it was certainly kind of, when we used to love playing music together, that really helped actually the static creative process in that way. As soon as I got there, I was like, oh, that's what I was after. It's perfect. And then the dialogue follows very easily.
So what you're saying for the creative process for static is that it wasn't very static.
Yay, nice. Couldn't have written it better myself.
But yeah, I suppose then, is there anything else that you would currently like to share with the audience? Just about anything you can share, I suppose, about what Tarsier is.
Yeah, you got me at a hard junction really there at the minute, because like, can't really talk anymore about Little Nightmares, and then I can't really talk about what we're doing next. So it was like the world's worst time for me to show my voice again. No, I don't think there is, man. I'm really sorry. I'm just frantically trying to think if there is anything. And we've got an art blast on ArtStation at the moment, which is dead good. You can actually see some of our artists' work on ArtStation.
Do you have
and again,
a link to that we can stick up for all the people who are interested?
I can. I mean, it's on our Twitter channel, so I can. How do I do that?
I actually have a link to the Tarsier Studios Twitter.
Yeah, you'll see it. Then I think it's actually on our homepage. You know, I pinned whatever they say on Twitter. Can you tell I'm a real Luddite when it comes to this stuff?
I mean, I am like the least social media savvy person, and it drives my editor insane. Just driven every editor I've ever been with mildly crazy.
Have you found it anyway? Because I've got the link at least now.
I believe I have the at Tarsier Studios for Twitter, and I have the tarsier.se link. But if you want
so if I just let's see if we can do this. This could be a great way. Can I just send text in this chat, or here we go, message. I'm gonna try this. Here I go.
Oh, it looks like I just received a message. Oh yeah, no, that works.
Get a load of me.
That works. We'll have the link to the Art Blast inside the description. Heck yeah. Just...
and I guess also, I mean, we are also still looking for people to come and work with us on our two new projects, which are called So yeah, if there's anyone out there listening who actually fits the bill on the stuff that we're advertising in a minute, then yeah, of course we'd love to hear from you. But yeah, that's about as much as I can share, I'm afraid, with my coy self.
Which, I mean, I suppose then I'll just sort of lead into the last question I normally ask, which is there any indie projects that you currently have your eye on that you're watching progress forward?
No, and that makes me a really bad game dev, doesn't it?
I mean, you're playing the golf thing, and I think that's indie. It rings.
It's hard to know, isn't it, these days? I mean, it's old now. It's but no, I'm not. I'm not one of those game nerds anymore. I used to be, but I don't know. I bring other stuff to my work. I think if I kind of was so as deep into games as I used to be, I think it would be maybe a bit like Human Centipede. My only source of references are the games, and I don't see that's how it's going to improve what I do. So yeah, I try and keep my distance a little bit. I'm always happy then when I come to something that I genuinely love, but it's hard to fight through the chaff in that respect. But no, if there are any cool indie games out there, then I would be happy to hear about them. But I think the most recent one was something Björn made me play called Paratopic. I don't think that's new, especially, but it was very, very cool.
That sounds familiar.
So.
Oh, yes. No, that is definitely familiar.
I loved that game, but I need to be told this by other people who have their finger on the pulse.
Yeah.
So,
no, I mean, I get it. I follow a bunch of stuff, but there's also so much out there that I just get overwhelmed. That's why my Steam wish list is a constantly growing beast that I have no hope of keeping on top of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose then that pretty much brings us to a pretty good concluding point. So, for you folks in the audience, you can buy or wishlist Little Nightmares 2 on Steam. For news, there's at Little Nights, which I believe is the Bandai Twitter.
Yep.
And there's also at Tarsier Studios, also on Twitter, which you'll also be able to follow them along for links to the Art Blast. There will be an actual direct link in the description, and also for just other news and what they're doing. You also do have their website, which is https://tarsier.se. It's a nice small web address, frankly, so I don't even feel bad about just being like tarsier.se. It's good. It's good. I don't trip up over it.
Hey, you're welcome.
Is there anywhere else you'd care to send people?
You can probably even go to our Instagram, because, like I say, I'm not in charge of that stuff anymore, so it's actually active and good. So we have an Instagram as well, which is probably just, I don't know, Tasha at Instagram or something, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, I guess.
This is why I was so terrible at that job.
I don't.
All hail Megan.
I don't get
There we go.
Instagram, but I mean, yes, thank you, Megan. And also thank you for answering my email and getting me back in touch with Dave. It's good.
Yeah. All hail the Megan phone. We are Tasha Studios
on Instagram.
And there's so much better stuff already. I can't even see the terrible stuff I posted now, which is just great.
You're just like, buried.
Yeah, somewhere further down the list. But I'm afraid I have to run now. So
I was actually about to say, like, a big thank you for arriving. Like, I appreciate you making the time and answering the questions as best as you can. Yeah.
I promise next time I will definitely answer more questions than that.
Yeah. I mean, give me a nudge when you know more and can talk more about things, and I would love to give a little peek and insight into what you folks will be doing when you're able to talk about it.
And yeah, it'll be my pleasure too, for sure.
But yeah, with that done, I'd also like to say a big thank you to the audience. Thank you for tuning in. If you agree, disagree, or just have something to say to me or a comment for Dave, feel free to leave one on the video. And if you have an interest in supporting my efforts to create new indie reviews, interviews, and gaming content, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know when there's new release. There's also a Discord, links in the description, so you can be part of our community, the Crit Hit Cauldron. And with all that said, I will catch you folks on the next episode of Crit Hit. Take care till then.